Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my shiur. I see that a lot of people come interested in the topic that I said we would talk about. Unfortunately, tonight is my birthday, so I brought some cupcakes, but I do not have enough for everybody. So, thank you. It's my Hebrew birthday tonight, but I'm delighted to be able to share it with you. And then I'm running off clubbing afterwards. But no. But unfortunately, we have to start off with some sad news that this gentleman, what was his name now? Yonah Noach Ben Leah was shot last night waiting for davening outside the Young Gilgul of Greater Miami on 10th Street. And then there was this package that was sent to the Young Gilgul of Bal Harbour in Surfside with threats against the Jews and so on. So I believe it is a time that we need to strengthen our davening, we need to strengthen our learnings. I'm glad to see so many people have come out. The president of the Young Gilgul put out a letter. I forwarded it on the Facebook group, our shul Facebook group, and so on. You can have a read of that. And it's with all the other attacks that have happened over the last 6-7 months, this is obviously something that we need to. Of course, we have our security teams and the police are doing their work, but we need to do our bit by rededicating ourselves to Yiddishkeit. As I said, sometimes it takes an anti-Semitic attack to make us realize that we're Jews, to fight, to connect. So let's not wait for that. Let's take it upon ourselves, time of the 3 weeks, coming up to the 9 days, that we should strengthen our davening. Doesn't just mean coming to davening, but whilst we are doing the davening, have a bit more feeling, have a bit more enthusiasm, and the same with the learning. And that's a chus, and in that merit, hopefully, we will see and merit the coming of Mashiach, and therefore we will have no need to discuss the halachas of the 9 days, but I will anyway. Whilst you're also excited and eager waiting for my topic tonight, your hearts and minds are open and receptive, so I thought it's a good time to tell you some halachas that Thursday night, if you daven Mariv early from once you've daven Mariv, so if you come to shul, I don't think, I'm not trying to put you off coming to shul early so you have an extra hour to do washing, but once you've daven Mariv or at sunset, one should preferably not wash one's clothes or bathe for pleasurable purposes, and one should make sure one has ironed all one's clothes ahead of time. And some people wear some of their clothes, their shirts and their pants and their suits beforehand, or some people put them on the ground and stamp on them for a few seconds before they wear them to take away that freshly laundered feeling and so on. And one shouldn't linger in the shower or the bath for pleasurable purposes. Swimming as well. We don't eat meat and wine and drink wine unless it's a tesiyim or a bris like I made last year, Baruch Hashem. So we're able to have meat, and I was able to shave and have a haircut. So those are the basic halachas. But just in case, and I put this in my message this week, just in case you're all nervous, because it says we don't do construction, we don't start construction in 9 days. In case you're all nervous, what happens if we get a wonderful opportunity for our shul? Fear not! Because for a mitzvah purpose, for building a shul, you can even start and do construction on Tisha B'Av. I remember in my yeshiva, they were extending the dining room on Tisha B'Av. It was weird. We're sitting there doing kinnis, and they were banging, quite literally, their heads against the brick wall with their sledgehammers to knock it out. Well, not literally their heads. But anyway, so don't worry. We can still, if the opportunity arises, we can still go ahead with our building if it so occurs. So fear not. The other area of halacha that comes from this week's parsha, which is a parsha shiur, is the halachas of toiveling one's kelim, taking them to the mikveh, anything that's metal, anything that's glass that you use to go directly on food, whether it's silverware, whether it's plate, a microwave plate, a grill plate that you put the food directly on the grill. You take the top part of the grill, take that to the mikveh, and so on. One can look up the halachas. It's very important. Doesn't make the food treif, but nevertheless, it is a mitzvah to take all that sort of stuff to the mikveh, and I urge and encourage people to do so. Right. The topic why you are presumably all here, and I have such a wonderful turnout. Maybe I shall speak about this every week. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about the topic of Gilgul, reincarnation as it's called, or as the Zohar puts it, transmigration, or as the Greeks put it, and I've just forgotten it, they called it what was it? I should have written it down. Metamyosis or something. No, metapsychosis. I don't know. What? No, anyone can help me out? No, you normally always help me out when I get stuck. Anyway,
We all know the Greek. So
was it member psychosis or something? Anyway, I should have written it down, but never mind. So that's what we're going to talk about, the Jewish arguments for and against. This is not a shiur intended to make you choose one way or the other. It's just intended to make you aware of the ideas and so on. However, I did write it down. Metapsychosis. Okay. I can't pronounce it. However you pronounce it. Anyway, I should have put it on the Google, what's it called, where it tells you how to pronounce it. Where it tells you how to pronounce it. Anyway, so it's not intended to make you go along a certain point of view. You're entitled to your point of view. I'm very much on the fence. In fact, I, having gone through the shiur, having prepared it, and we'll go through it later, I'm probably more of a believer than I was before I started the shiur, based on the explanations of my good friend, which I shall come to, hopefully, before the end of the shiur. But anyway, let's go through. So, on the face of it, let's start from the beginning. First of all, we better start is, what is a soul? We have this idea that souls move around from body to body, life to life, life to animal, however you want to take it. So what is this idea of a soul? So I know I try and steer away from Kabbalah. They have 5 levels of the soul. They have Ruach, Nefesh, different types of the soul, and each day we daven 3 times, because we only have 3 parts of the soul that we daven for, and then on Shabbos it's 4. Yom Kippur we do all 5. Each tefillah is connected to another one, and Yechida is the one. Certain ones go up to Shamayim when you're sleeping, certain ones don't, certain ones stay in the grave after you die. That's the whole Kabbalistic idea. But anyway, I like to say things on a basic level. And my Rebbe explained what is a soul. He explained very simply. He said a soul are all the things that the body cannot do after it's dead. Right? So the body, the guf as we call it, is still there, but it cannot do any of the things that it could do when it was alive. So all the things that leave the body at death is the soul. So what are the things? Thoughts, speech. In fact, the Targum Onkelos, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says he blew into the humans a neshama, it says, Vayipach L'Yapov Nishmas Chaim, he blew into Adam the neshama of life. Says the Onkelos, Ruach Malala, which means the Ruach of speech. So neshama is the ability to speak, your thoughts, your speech, your memories, your thoughts that you think, all of that is part of your neshama. Your ability to see, your ability to hear, your ability to think. But when it comes into the body, HaKadosh Baruch Hu constricts it through the human eyes. So what you see only through the eyes, you hear only through what ears are capable of hearing. When a person dies, they can see the whole world because the neshama sees everything, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're not restricted to the eyes, you're hearing, you see everything. Like Rav says, make me a nice hesped, because I'll be listening. They're listening to the hesped. Make sure you say something. I'm not sure what they're going to do about it if you say something horrible. Maybe they'll come back and haunt your dreams. I'm not quite sure. But you're not restricted by the bodily functions, by the ears, by the nose, by the mouth, because when the neshama is squashed into the body, it then becomes constricted by these various different body parts. But other than that, when the neshama leaves the body, all those things make up the neshama. So when you go up to Shemayim, you still have your thoughts, you still have your memories, you still have your ability to talk, and so on. If you want to understand it in some sort of a round bubble, I don't know, all your thoughts and speech in some sort of a round bubble floating through space, that's up to you. But that's basically what the idea of a neshama is. That's what makes up your neshama. So where did this idea of transmigration come from? So, on the face of it, doesn't appear to be in Tanakh, and on the face of it, doesn't appear to be in the Gemara, and certainly doesn't appear in the Rambam. Not that I'm an expert in all the Rambam's writing, because I haven't learned all the Rambam, and all the bits that I have learned I certainly don't remember, but it's brought down that the Rambam doesn't discuss it, and he was a big philosopher who got into trouble, as we said last week, for lots of areas of his philosophy, so he certainly would have brought it up if he did believe in it. But the first person to talk about it is Rabbi Gaon. So after the period that the Gemara ended, around 500 CE, there was the period known as the Gaonim. So you had the Mishnayos, then the Gemara, then the Gaonim. Rabbi Sadia Gaon, Rabbi Gaon, they're the ones who have a lot of our tefillos, a lot of our siddur today, a lot of the early halachos that they codified came from the Gaonim, period of Gaonim. So Rabbi Sadia Gaon in his Sefer Emunah V'Deos, which there's a wonderful website called safaria.org, I think it is, where you can see Sfarim, so you don't have to have all the Sfarim, but you can see it. Marty Fine made me aware of it, so I was able to look it up. Chapter 6, or section 6, chapter 8, and there he brings down this idea of transmigration, that it comes from the Greeks, and it comes from this new religion that was sprouting around at the time, Islam, and it's morphing its way into Judaism, and he says it is, for want of a better word, utter nonsense. He lists the 3 or 4 proofs that they bring down. He doesn't answer those proofs. He just says they are, for anybody with a clever mind, they are nonsense. I obviously wasn't a clever mind because I couldn't work out why they were nonsense. But anyway, so he says that the first chapter in Tehillim says, praiseworthy the man who never went in the ways of the wicked. I mean, never went. He's not going in the ways of the wicked. He's alive, because we're going on to say that Hashem will give him all these great rewards. I mean, he never went. So that's where they learn out. He never went in the previous life. In the previous life, so that we have this idea of Gilgul from the beginning of Tehillim. So he argues against it. But the first major Jewish commentator to come out for it was the Ramban. Nachmanides. Right? We've heard of the Ramban. He, on the pasuk in Eov, Lamed Gimel, chapter 33, verse 29. Now, I don't have the Ramban, he's not in here, but I'll read out the pasuk anyway. Eov is complaining about the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu was treating him. And he says as follows, Hen kol eila yifal el, is this all the stuff that Hashem is going to do? He's going to give you the opportunity to cleanse yourself, to forgive yourself. Goes on a whole thing about forgiveness. Pamayim, twice, shalosh, 3 times, im gaver, with a man. 2 or 3 times with each man, he'll give you the opportunity to do teshuvah. So, of course, Rashi and the Metzudas David and all these explanations say very simply, HaKadosh Baruch Hu in each person's life gives you 2 or 3 opportunities to do teshuvah. We spoke about Bilam, didn't we? We spoke about Bilam. Hashem even made the donkey speak, even had to plan it years ahead, hundreds of years, thousands of years earlier, at the beginning of the creation, that the donkey should speak, to give Bilam the opportunity to do teshuvah. Hashem will always give people the opportunity to do teshuvah. And the scary thoughts of Nebuchadnezzar we spoke about on Shabbos, who butchered thousands and millions of Jews, and in the end did teshuvah, and he was a ger tzedek, and Hashem accepted him. How we rationalize that, I have no idea. But you see that Hashem gives everybody the opportunity to do teshuvah. 2 or 3 times he'll let you do teshuvah. If you ignore all the warning signs, that's it. Goodbye. How many times do you want him already to give you the opportunity? So the Ramban says, 2 or 3 times. What does this mean? 2 or 3 cycles of life. 2 or 3 Gilgulim, transmigrations of your soul. It says that Hashem will send the body down, pamayim, twice, shalosh, or 3 times. So it says Ramban, is a proof from here that a neshama can go down up to 3 times. A neshama can be recycled or regurgitated 3 times into 3 different bodies. And I don't quite know if we're going to say that neshama is all your thoughts and all your feelings and all your sights and all your talking. How does that then become into another body? Is another question of which I do not have the answer to. So, but that's how it says, the Ramban, that each neshama can have up to 2 or 3 lives till the batteries run out. And then if you haven't cleansed your soul in those 3 times, then, I don't know, it's off to the scrapper's soul yard. I don't know, what do you call it in this country? The scrap heap? You have that expression here?
Wood
huh? The wood pile. The soul is...
Off to the knacker.
The what?
To the knacker.
To the knacker, right? Okay, he's off after 3 times. If the soul hasn't perfected itself, he's off to the knacker's yard, and that's it. Goodbye, soul. It's retired. He's had his 3 goes, and that's it. That's what the Ramban says, that it is from here. But the truth is, there was a huge debate, and this is where I became interested in this topic, and this is where I brought my Gemara as opposed to using these, because I want to show you the note I have when we went through. This is a Gemara in Baba Metzia, Kuf Zayin, 107. And there's also a Gemara in Brachos, which we shall talk about momentarily. Says the Gemara like this. We have in the Brachos, the blessings just before the Tochacha and Parshas Kisavo, Hashem says, if you keep the Torah, You'll have lots of blessings. Baruch atah ba'ir, you'll be blessed in the city. Baruch atah b'sadia, you'll be blessed in the field. Says the Gemara, what does it mean you'll be blessed in the city, blessed in the field? It means you'll be blessed that your house will be near the shul. So you don't have to walk so far to shul. Or as Tosfos says, so you'll get in the first 10. Because you'll be in the first 10 there, because you're right close. You'll always be there. But I thought I would say that. Interesting. Next. Baruch atah b'voyecha, blessed are you when you come. Or Baruch atah b'teisecha. So the Gemara says, well, one is when you leave the town, one is when you come back from the town. You'll never find your wife a sofek nida. Why a sofek nida? Because if she's a definite nida, not too bad. Okay, she's a nida, what can you do? And we can't have relationships, what can you do? Never mind. But if it's a sofek, it's so close, I'm not sure, that's even more anguish for somebody. So that's why you'll have a bracha that you'll never come home and your wife will be in a doubtful state. Next has the Gemara, a third pshat. Ma biyascha ba'olam b'lo chet. Just like Baruch atah b'vayecha, you are blessed when you come into the world because you have no sins. So the bracha is Baruch atah b'tzisecha, af yitziascha min ha'olam b'lo chet. Just like when you come into the world, you are free from sin. So the bracha is that when you leave the world, you should leave the world perfect without any sins. So I have a note over here. Ayin rashash, have a look at the rashash, who says this is a steerer to the opinion of reincarnation. So let's have a look at the rashash, one of the commentators of the Gemara, Reb Shimon somebody, and he says, very simply, very cryptically, because he's a very cryptic commentator, and it's hard to understand, and he's so cryptic I can't even find it. But here he is. Here's the rashash. He says very simply on this Gemara, 6 words. Mikan stiruk tsas. This is a little contradiction. Levale das ha Gilgul, to those who hold of this idea of Gilgul. Stiruk tsas. Now I reserve the right to come back and answer this, which is where I was switched on to the idea of Gilgul when I was preparing the shiur. So I reserve the right to come back and tell you the vote of the Satmar Rebbe, which I stumbled across. The Eivisher sent it to me via a shiur from somebody else who happened to mention it. I told you about the Rabbonim always get the Siyata D'Shmaya, and that happened many times with this book that fell off the shelf, that happened years ago, but we'll tell you that in a minute. So I'll reserve the right to answer this question at a later point in time. So that's one Gemara.
In this
Gilgul, right. That's one Gemara, that's a bone of contention, or a soul of contention. The next Gemara is the Gemara in brachos that they argue about. Again, this could go both ways. So the Gemara says like this: Moshe Rabbeinu bikesh, Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem 3 things. He wanted to know 3 things, right? I'm going to leave you hanging to what the 2 are. The first 2 are, but the third one is, he said, Ribbon Shalom Ibnei Ma Yesh Tzadik V'Tovlo. Why do you have righteous people who have a good life? V'yesh Tzadik V'Ralo, and you have righteous people who have a bad life. Yesh Rasha V'Tovlo, you have wicked, evil people who are living it up. Rasha Yesh Rasha V'Ralo. There's obviously a Rasha who has bad, but that we can understand. It's the question of why are there Tzadik who has a bad time, or a Rasha who has a good time. Amar Loi, Moshe, he said, you can't understand this. This is beyond your comprehension. Hashem did not allow him to understand. That's something totally beyond your comprehension. However, the Gemara attempts a few answers to this question. So the Gemara says, Amama, let's go back to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu refused to answer from Moshe Rabbeinu, and we'll answer it. How you rationalize that as well, I've no idea. But anyway, so the Gemara gives a few answers about whether it's a tzaddik who's a real tzaddik, if he's true and steadfast, or if he's not true and steadfast. Says it because a tzaddik is getting punished for his bad deeds here, so he can reap the rewards in Olam Haba, and the Rasha is getting rewarded in this world, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu can cut him off in the next world. But says the Gemara like this: the third interpretation is tzaddik, the toivloi, tzaddik who has it good, tzaddik ben tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik. Tzaddik v'raloi, a tzaddik who has it bad, tzaddik ben rasha, it's a tzaddik, son of a rasha. Rasha v'raloi, a rasha has it bad, rasha ben rasha, rasha son of a rasha. Rasha v'toivloi, a rasha who has it bad, rasha ben tzaddik. At least you have the schus of the tzaddik. So here we have a big fierce debate, because one of the ideas behind transmigration, Gilgul, is this very question, that what does Gilgul do? Gilgul tells you that you are coming to this world to rectify previous sins. So therefore, you come to the world without sins, which is why the last Gemara we said is so contentious, because you're coming already saddled with baggage, right? And you come with the sins. So how can we say you're having a bad life? Because maybe you're good now, but you're punished for previous sins, which is what the England football manager, Glenn Hoddle, got sacked over. You probably have never heard of him. But he was the England football manager at the World Cup in 1998. And he got sacked a couple of years later. You heard this? Because he said that people with disabilities are being punished for sins of a previous life. The English public did not like that, and he got sacked. Don't know, you probably never heard of it or remember that story, but it was very famous. He got sacked for saying, which is basically what Gilgul actually means, but we won't go into that, won't dwell on it. But that's the idea, that people are being punished now for sins of a previous life. So why didn't the Gemara say, I'll tell you the answer to this question. A tzaddik, a tzaddik who's pure, has no baggage, and he's perfect, so he has a good. Tzaddik v'ra'lo is, you're a tzaddik now, but in your previous Gilgul, you were evil or wicked, whatever, so you're getting punished, which is the whole reason why your soul came. So that the Gemara doesn't say. So says everybody, as a proof from this Gemara, that this idea of transmigration, the idea of reincarnation, doesn't apply. However, it was explained to me, Rabbi Spolter, the Chabad Rabbi of Weston, when we were discussing this. I don't know why we were discussing this, but anyway. And then I saw something similar today. He said, no. He said, this is exactly what this Gemara means. When the Gemara says, tzaddik ben tzaddik, it doesn't mean my physical father was a tzaddik. It means I'm a tzaddik, ben my previous Gilgul was a tzaddik. So I'm great. The question is then, what you're doing here, I don't know. But that's besides the point. So if my tzaddik, the son, my previous Gilgul was a tzaddik, then I'm okay. Then I'm on easy street. I'm a tzaddik, my previous Gilgul was a tzaddik, great. Tzaddik ben rasha means not that my physical father was a rasha, but my previous Gilgul was a rasha, which then explains what I'm doing here, because I've got to rectify my sins and I've got to atone for it. So that's why, because my previous Gilgul ben rasha, I'm a Gilgul of a rasha, that's why that's why there's the suffering that they go through. So they say that's exactly what this Gemara means, and they turn it round on its head and say it's a proof from this Gemara of the concept of transmigration, the concept of a Gilgul. So this Gemara ends up being, I think, parav. Don't you agree? You can have it either way. You can use it for each different way. Then, of course, we have the Or HaChaim, who at the beginning of Bereshis says that Hevel, the neshama of Hevel, became Moshe Rabbeinu. His neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu and Hevel were the same, so he obviously agrees in it. Then you have the Sefer Ikrim, written by Rabbi Yosef Albo. I had a look at this also on the website Sefer, and he is much, much, much more vocal about this is an antithesis to Yiddishkeit. For these reasons, we say you come without chet, so you come on your own, number one, and number two, the whole idea of schar v'oinish, the whole idea that there is a court case, however we understand that, you're going to get judged for your deeds. There's going to be good deeds, bad deeds, weighed up, the whole sort of thing. We say Rosh Hashanah, you're going to have your deeds weighed up here and there. That's the whole tenet of Jewish belief. Everybody agrees in that, right? Gemara is very clear about that, and so on. So what you're telling me is, well, actually, we've got to throw in a few variables here, You've got your life deeds, and then we've got to add in all these extra deeds that were done in previous lives. You got to add, that doesn't quite add up to this whole idea that we're supposed to be judged on our own merit, stand up to my own merit. I mean, so what? What hope do I have now? I'm saddled, I'm burdened with previous misdemeanors or previous, if you say tzaddik ben tzaddik is a previous Gilgul, the Gemara says, then I could be elevated by previous, it's not fair. I mean, it doesn't seem to fit in. So the Sefer Hoikarim is very, 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 very against it. I'll tell you what else I have a problem with, and I don't quite understand it again in my newfound way of thinking, which we'll explain at the end. And that is the idea of Tchias HaMesim. Tchias HaMesim is one of the most important beliefs in Yiddishkeit. Everybody agrees there is a concept of Tchias HaMesim. You have at the very beginning of Bereshis, And we're supposed to think of this in Shachris every day when we say, we say in Shemana Esra Hashem, we believe that you're going to revive the dead. We're supposed to think of the pasuk when HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes Adam HaRishon with death. He says, your earth, which literally translates as, and to the earth you will return, you'll die. But you could also translate it, as the Vilna Gaon does, you will return from the earth, i.e., you'll be resurrected. And there are many other proofs that we could go on from the Torah, that Techias HaMesim min HaTorah. That is the most important tenet of faith. Nobody argues with that. So, how then do you understand this idea of transmigration? Because, to my understanding, the belief is that every single person, every single body has the ability, some people may not merit, like we've said from the Gemara, certain people who never merit to do Techias HaMesim or whatever. People who are cremative have an issue of a problem. That's one of the things we say to people who want to get cremated. You could be cutting off yourself from Techias HaMesim. Why would you do that? That's one of the tricks that they use. But anyway, so then if I have one soul that has been used in 5 different bodies, who gets Techias HaMesim number 1? Because surely then, there's 5 guf, there's 5 bodies, but there's only one soul. We say it's each soul, it's only the last reincarnation that gets up, which is probably how they explain it, but then what about all these previous bodies? It says each guf, each body, will rise up, like the bones of Yechezkel, the Haftorah that we read about in Sukkot. They got up all the bones, the bodies will rise up. Every body has the physical body has the ability to rise up in Techias HaMesim. So how do we understand this idea of the souls? And number 2, see if you agree with me on this one. I sounds good in my head, but let's see if you like this one. If we say that this soul is now into a new body, is that Techias HaMesim in itself? Is that the fact that you are sitting here today in 5759, let's say you are a Gilgul of X, does that mean you are now Makayim Techias HaMesim from that soul? I don't know. Surely it would, because it's the same soul. The soul has been resurrected. It's a different body, but it's the same soul. Does that mean you are walking, talking Techias HaMesim? I mean, what do you think about that? You agree with it? You know? If the fact that the soul is being reincarnated is now being used for a second time in a new body, has that now been Techias HaMesim? If you say no, that means because it's the bodies, right? It's the bodies. So if it's the bodies that is Techias HaMesim and the original body hasn't been reawoken, then where are all these souls for these bodies? Are going to be new souls coming along? The cobblers are going to make new souls for the bodies. Yeah, you have cobblers here. No, never mind. The cobblers are going to make new souls for the bodies, and you're going to have new souls. Is that what's going to happen? Each Techias HaMesim will get a new soul? Maybe, I don't know. So that's one of the problems I have. I don't know how to rationalize this idea of Gilgulim with Techias HaMesim. That's my issue. I haven't, I'm sure the people discuss it very well, and so on and so forth. So that's the Rishonim, the Achronim who debate this, the Rabbi Yaakov Emden, my good friend, who I like a lot, and I go through a lot of the things because he's the one who advocates in the 1700s that every man should be allowed to take a second wife because the generations are getting so bad. So that's why I like him. As my wife says, you can't even cope with one wife. Why do you want 2? But anyway, he wrote a whole Sefer on it, which I've downloaded to my computer. But anyway, so I mean, he's also very much against it. And so on and so forth. Now, before we come to the Kabbalistic, so is Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. You've all heard of Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, right? He's considered one of the latter-day giants of Torah. Am I right? Yes? He was the one who fought against the Enlightenment movement in Germany. And he's, people... Right, you wrote the Chumash and many other things, right? Chorev, the whole thing. People really aspire to him and his writings. So he, on the pasuk of embalming Yosef, writes as follows. This is chapter 50, presumably verse 1. I've marked the page. Here we go. So I'm going to read out from the Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. This is a translation copy. So, here it is. How striking is it? The contrast is revealed here. The Egyptians would embalm the body so that individuality would endure. However, the soul, he thought, did not remain in its personal individuality, but wandered from body to body. This is the Egyptians, right? This is what the Egyptians think, transmigration. Even to animal bodies. Here's the word. in manifold metamorphosis. That's, I think, the word I was trying to say, metamorphopsychosis. I don't know. Right. The Jew believes that the soul endures forever, whereas the body wanders. Once the soul has been gathered into the souls of its people, to Hein Nishma So to Ruah B'Tzra Chaim, we say in the Kein Mali Rachamim, the body has nothing more to do with the individual. Rather, it's a mitzvah to bring the body as soon as possible into close contact with the decomposing earth. The body returns to dust and goes through all the transformations of earthly matter. The Egyptians believed in the transmigration of the soul and tried to protect the body from any possible of change. The Jew believes in the soul's eternal personal existence and surrenders the body to earthly change. So he says quite clearly the difference between the Egyptian belief and the Jewish belief. So what does he say? That he holds very clearly, and apparently he says so in other places, that Jews do not believe, or he does not believe that Judaism, Yiddishkeit, has any place for this idea of Gilgul, transmigration of the souls. Now we come across to the other miracle that happened to me. All these miracles keep happening, Baruch Hashem. And I was walking up and down, pacing up and down in my room, and I happened to notice in the book of English books we have, in the separate English book section, Parshas Pinchas. Last week was Parshas Pinchas. I'll take it out, see what it says. Then I remember that this book came into my possession because my mother-in-law is the president of the Friends of Western Library, and they used to sell books to make money. Now they just sell candies to the kids and make a fortune. But so they don't bother with books anymore. And somebody donated this book and nobody wanted it. So I thought, my son-in-law's a rabbi, maybe he'll want it. Mm-hmm. So we had it stuffed in the shelf somewhere. Baruch Hashem, not too dusty because we've moved a couple of times, so we've had to put it into boxes, so we got rid of the dust. Don't think I've ever looked at it. But, Parshas Pinchas. I open it up, and lo and behold, apparently the Zohar has a whole book called Parshas Pinchas, not the Sedra Parshas Pinchas, a book called Parshas Pinchas. And what do I find when I open it? The Zohar's opinion on transmigration of the souls. Rabbi Shimon was here. Where is this now? Wrong place. I have a few places that I marked. This one. Here we go. So I'm going to leave aside all the Kabbalistic ideas of the Psukim that he brings down here. And if the soul does not return perfect as it was when it was given, the verse, "Thither they go again," is applied to it and to all the other souls which are like it, i.e. not perfect. In other words, they return to this world in a transmigration. So the Zohar is the first major. We're not going into now what the Zohar is, how the Zohar is. It's 8:06. Maybe there's a topic for another share which we might get a big turnout to. But anyway, so here the Zohar very clear. And so also, if he is incomplete in not having a son, we won't go into this. He talks about in Parshas Pinchas, says, if you don't have any sons, your inheritance goes to the daughter, and it says Vahavarto, passes over, which he says is a loshon of Aveira, it's a sin. You don't have a male son, it's a sin. Alright? That's what he says, and therefore you have to come back down to this world again. This is also how the Abarbanel explains Levirate marriage, Yibum, that the soul comes in. So it turns out that this woman who loved the husband, now it's the same soul that's in the son. So that's very interesting. Anyway, that's how the Abarbanel explains the mitzvah of Yibum. Anyway, Levirate marriage, I think they call it in English, don't they? Yes. Something like that, right. So here, quite clearly, I opened the book, I literally made me see it out the corner of my eye, and here it is, the Zohar. I knew the Zohar, what he says, but I have it here, quite literally nice and black and yellow, as this book is. There in black and yellow. And so also, if he's incomplete in not having a son, or if he has no daughter, which is necessary in this world, so that he can be perfected by her in this world, the whole thing, and he go with letter A, the whole thing, the generation. So he goes on and on and on. So this is the first thing that comes in. This is the Zohar, and of course, the Arizal was very, very big into it, and his pupil, Rabbi Chaim Vital, wrote a Sefer called Sefer HaGilgulim about all different people who match up with different people. Pinchas, we had from last week's Parsha, were Mitzkagil into Eliyahu Hanavi, he flew into Eliyahu Hanavi, and so on. And that's how they explain, the Gemaras. I got told off last week when I said about that Bilam's father was Lavan, and somebody shouted at me, that would be 300 years old. Was it you? Somebody shouted at me, oh, how can it be he'll be 300 years old? So that's how they explain it. It doesn't mean literally he was Lavan's father. It means his soul was the same soul as Lavan's father. When it says that Parai, when the Gemara says that in Nineveh, the story from Yom Kippur, it says that when it came to Nineveh, the king of Nineveh was Paro, hundreds of years. So he said, doesn't mean it's literally the same human person. It means that his soul, the soul of Paro, was the soul that was then in this king of Nineveh many hundreds of years later. So the Zohar is very, very big, and I spoke to a rabbi today, and he said it's makubal now in Klal Yisrael, that people believe in it's accepted, this idea of transmigration. Now, as I said, I changed a little bit my beliefs based on the views of my good friend. And that is the Vilna Gaon. I'm a big Gaonist. I might even be a Gilgul of the Vilna Gaon, I don't know. Apparently I'm related to him. Big Vilna Gaon fan. And he has some fascinating works on this matter. Vilna Gaon, shall we say, preface this, whilst was very big into Kabbalah and his idea of Kabbalah, let's not kid ourselves, we're going to talk about it in a minute. When he wrote his halachas, there's only two things he paskins through Kabbalah. He's very anti-Kabbalah in halacha. Two things. One of them I've forgotten, and the other one is the chalas on Friday night. Normally you're supposed to take from the top challah, because that's the one elevated. But Friday night he paskins you should take from the bottom one. You have a little bit closer. That's the only one of. There's only two Kabbalists, and that's one of the Kabbalistic. He says it's a Kabbalistic idea. There's one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. Again, I probably should have written it down. But anyway, so he paskins la halacha. He was fought against the Hasidim, the Hasidic movement. So he was, not somebody that went in for all this Kabbalistic stuff that you may think, and the Hasidic stuff. He was very much a fighter against it. Really fought against it in the 1700s. He fought against it, the Rabbi from Vilna, and he was a Gaon Olam. He lived at the same time as the Industrial Revolution. They said there was going to be a great influx of Chachma. The British took it for the Industrial Revolution, and Thomas Stevenson built his first ever train that was right near my house that we always used to go and admire on the top of the hill. But anyway, so here's the Vilna Gaon. I'm sure you must have heard of him, right? And that's also, he's one of the people who says you shouldn't take your 4 tzitzis. When you do Krishma, you should only take 2. And I used to do that because I didn't get married till I was 27, so I didn't wear a talis except on Shabbos when I was leading the service. So it's very difficult when you have your tzitzis tucked in your pockets to gather all 4 around here. So I thought, you know what, I'll follow the Vilna Gaon and just take the front 2, because it's much easier. And talis is a bit easier, so I've always, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. I flip-flop between the 2, because I think I should really keep on the Vilna Gaon. But the Gaon has a lot of halachas. I'm a big Gaonist. Big Gaon. Big fan of the Gaon. He is a very big believer in Gilgul, which actually shocked me. A big shock to me. I didn't think that Vilna Gaon would be somebody who wrote about this, but he wrote, again, maybe a topic for another shiur, in Yonah. The book of Yonah that we read on. Fascinating. I only went through a little bit of it. It was scintillating. He, in his drush on Yonah, explains the whole book of Yonah as the soul's journey in the body. And he says the word Yonah means soul, and he says when Hashem said to Yonah, go to Nineveh is the idea of a body, and the Averis and mitzvahs, it's a whole thing. And he said when he said I want to die, when Yonah said I really want to die because it's too much for me, he meant in this Gilgul, I've finished with this Gilgul now, let me go into the next Gilgul. And when it says Hashem said Vayom Hashem el Yonah Sheinis, he says Sheinis means the second Gilgul, now he's in the next life. Goes in a whole explanation which I haven't got time for now. Didn't even finish reading it myself, but he is a big believer in this idea of Gilgul. So when I saw that, and I'm a big Gaonist, I've nailed myself to my views on being a big Gaonist, and I saw that my big friend, the Vilna Gaon, believes in it, I have become much more open to the idea. I was never against it. I say many times to different people, I say myself, I'm a Gilgul of whoever, but maybe a Gilgul of Vilna Gaon, David HaMelech, who knows? The world is my oyster. I could choose anybody. Anyway, so he's a big believer in it. So that shocked me, and that's why I'm now leaning more towards believing this idea of Gilgul. As I say, I still have these questions, these problems. But now I'm going to finish off like I started with the words from the Satmar Rebbe. So the Satmar Rebbe, again, I just heard it on a shiur, and anyway, just came across it just a few hours ago, on who answers this question. He says 2 main answers. The first one is it's referring, if your soul is transmigrating, he says, that means you've not really left the world. You're still here, right? You're still, somehow stuck. So when it says, when you come, it says you'll give a brachot when you first came to the world. That's when your first Gilgul came, the first time. That you never had any chet. Everyone agrees. You never had chet the first Gilgul. Also, when you finally, your soul retires, it's had its due, it's done whatever it's done, should be below chet. Because of course, like we said from the Ramban, if you have your 3 goes and you mess up still, that's finished for you. So you could still not be perfect after your 3 chances, So says the Satmarov, that's this idea. B'yaschim Elolam is the first time the soul comes, and Siyaschim Elolam is the last time it leaves. And then the last pshat is like this. He says, Gilgul is a new thing. The Zohar brings it. That was discovered, the 13th, 14th century, or whatever. He said, Gilgul is a new thing. He said, times of Moshe Rabbeinu, the times of the Beis Hamikdash, times of the Gemara, there was no Gilgul. There was no such a thing as Gilgul because everybody was able to perfect their souls the first time. So there was never a Gilgul because everybody would do teshuvah before they died. Everybody would, and therefore they would cleanse their souls. Or if they were so wicked, they would be it. They would ruin their opportunities. So Gilgul, he says, is a new thing. He said that's why it was only brought about in the last few hundred years. Because it's only in the last few hundred years that we have needed this idea of cleansing our souls, because unfortunately we are not at the level that we can cleanse our souls the first time. So he admits it's a new thing. He says, when this Gemara was written, then yes, you came once, you came without a chet, and you left. But the bracha would be, you left without a chet. Yeah, but now unfortunately, after the Churban and all this sort of stuff, the generations have gone lower, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has had to change things. And just to finish off with the words of the Vilna Gaon. So the Vilna Gaon says, how do you know? Again, this is not Kabbalah, this is not some Hasidic Rebbe, this is the Vilna Gaon. Says, how do you know what is your tikkun? Everyone goes, tikkun olam, right? Well, how do you know, says the Vilna Gaon, what is your tikkun? What is it that you're supposed to rectify? So says the Vilna Gaon like this. Whatever is your big avera, whatever you are drawn to, whatever is your, what do they call it? What's the word for it? Your vice, that's it. Whatever is, am I right? The vice, that's where whatever vices you have, whatever vice you are particularly, I'm not talking about Michael, but whatever vice you are drawn to, well, that's vice, okay. Whatever vice you are drawn to, that is the vice that you have to be masakin, you have to rectify. So if you're drawn towards stealing, I want to steal money, I'm desperate to steal, then it means that your vice was that you're back in this world to rectify the sin of stealing. If you're so desperate to commit sins with women, you have such a taiva for women, it means that in a previous life you could have committed adultery, you could have committed one of the sins, the cardinal sins that all the women you're not allowed to marry. That could be your thing. And the second thing he said is your midos. Look at your character traits. What is your worst character trait? Do you get angry very easily? Or you quickly draw, or you, then it means that that's what he's here to rectify. If you whatever your characteristic traits that you know are your weaknesses, those are the character traits that you have been sent here to rectify. If you are perfect, then I suppose you're stuck. Maybe you're one of the people who are new souls, because there must be new souls. So as I say, that is a little bit of a discussion on both sides of the arguments through some of the sources of the Gemara and the Talmud as to who and what the ideas behind transmigration. And again, you can believe it. If you don't believe it, I was, as I say, a bit on the fence until I saw this Vilna Gaon, which really shocked me and surprised me. But as you say, there are many, as you see, even from Rabbi Ramban R Hirsch, there are many different people on both sides of the divide. So you can pick and choose which side you wish to go on. I'm not here to lead you down any particular path. But whether you believe in transmigration, you don't believe in transmigration, the idea is we should still do Torah mitzvos, we should still do tshuva as often as possible, and if you don't believe in in Gilgul, it's even more imperative that you do tshuva. If you believe in Gilgul, okay. So if I don't do it this time, I'll have another chance, But if you don't believe in Gilgul, you better get it right this time. Because you don't get it right this time, there ain't any second chances. So I will leave you on that note. It's coming up to Tisha B'Av. We hope that this will be a Yom Tov, and we'll be able to sit and talk about whether we did know about transmigration. Hopefully we'll know with clarity with the coming of Mashiach. B'meheira v'yomeinu v'namar. Amen.
Amen. Exactly.
How do we bring the matter of